first thing for the work session is the agenda. We'll follow along with the agenda, which will be the agenda based for the next meeting, 2 weeks from today. And what's the date of that meeting? February 4th. It's on the
Yes.
top right there. So we'll first have the recognitions and then the speaking of Kevin Smith about the financial audit.
He'll obviously be here at the board's meeting, we think, but she's going to explain a little bit about it and a couple other things related to that now.
He added, and what I wanted to mention, he is supposed to be here for this one, but it may actually get put on to March. He's called, there's a new disclosure on the pension liability that we talked about, that we have to report our share of the state retirement system, our portion of that. So there's some additional information he's requested recently, so it may or may not make it. But as far as the financial audit, everything's clear, the same recommendation, that we don't have enough people, particularly at our schools, for segregation businesses. But same here, that's just one of those things where it costs more to do it, to correct the problem. So you kind of just take some risk, and we try to put some other procedures in place with oversight from our principals and other staff. So, and the other thing I wanted to mention, this is our third year of our 3-year audit contract with Kevin. So if we were going to do RFPs, this would be the time that we would do that for the upcoming audit. Dr. Spivey and I have had some conversations.
I don't think I mentioned this to Mr. Eustace, but she and I had some conversation about potentially, instead of doing that, to request an audit from the examiner's office. That is a very different process than what has happened here, so we've kind of been bouncing the idea around of doing that. I'd like your input on it, or you don't have to do that now, but certainly before we get ready to make that decision. Everybody would have to understand up front, it will be a lot more thorough. That's just the best way to say it. So, and there will be findings from an audit like that maybe we're not used to, but that's why we want to do it, to make sure. Of course, y'all know we were working really hard to kind of get everything in order and make sure, but we want to make sure that if there are not some things that we can't see that we need to address that could be picked up in that process that will not be picked up in a regular audit that we've been used to. So typically the examiner's office has way too much on their plate and would say no, but we think that we, based on just the adjustments and transition and other things we've worked through here, that we could provide a rationale that would cause them to consider doing an audit here. But I would just want to make sure the board understands, if we go through that process, we're basically asking for it, and we want to do that, but y'all would just have to understand it would look a little different. The report would be different.
Is that just a one-shot deal, like a 1-year thing? It's not like a 3-year process?
No, my thought would be for us to do that, to try to see, is there something we're missing that we need to address that we haven't picked up on, or that our normal audit process hasn't picked up on, so that we can correct it. I mean, that's what we're trying to do, and we're just, wanting to make sure we've found everything we need to find.
This is the state examiner?
State examiner. So I would want to ask them to do it next year, our next audit, and then perhaps go back to, we could look at kind of the report and see. It might be something we'd want to ask for again, or it might be something.
Depending on if they have, particular findings, they may want to follow up the second year to follow up on the previous year's audit findings. So I would say 2 years at the most.
And is there a cost?
There is, but they only charge for the federal portion of the audit. They don't charge you for your financial or legal compliance audit.
So it would be cheaper, but that's not the reason
Right.
we're wanting to do that.
But we're not spending more to do it.
Oh, no.
No. And typically, we might not be able to get them to do it, to get on their schedule, and we may not, even if we ask, but we think we could, but want your thoughts
Because we've
about
had
that.
the flex funds and that kind of thing, is that kind of a,
That's not what they're primarily looking at. They're digging into, just all of a lot of the day-to-day functions and payroll functions and bookkeeping functions. And again, we've made lots of adjustments there and are continuing to do that. We just have transitioned, we have our new payroll person in place right now. And we have a retired payroll person who contracts out through the state who is helping us with that transition, and that has been great. And
Is
so
this
we'll
the
do
same
that
audit
this
that they
month.
do at the schools, or they just use the same one that we've been using at the school, when they go to the schools and audit? When they do audits around each school, that's not state doing that either?
No, that's our regular audit track that you're referring to. The state examiners have a county audit division, a state audit division. County audit division they're responsible for auditing all the county boards of education in the state. They audit county commissions, revenue commissioners, all those offices. But they're not, city systems are not required to have an examiner's audit. We can contract with CPA firms.
Okay.
They do several other.
This is agency you used to work for, right?
I did.
So you're familiar and know the people. Have you done any informal inquiries to see?
I haven't, no.
We wanted to make sure y'all, because, the upside is we make sure we found everything we need to find. The downside is we found everything we need to find. So we want to make sure y'all understand that's what our intent is, to make sure, because we want to,
but it's in the line of more transparency.
Yeah, the downside is, once you find it, you gotta submit it, but that's what we're looking to do anyway. I agree with it. It's not correct me if I'm wrong, it's not a forensic audit, but it's somewhere between the private and the forensic, where it's kind of, it's a governmental entity doing your audit. I don't know if it'll end up coming up cheaper necessarily or not, because they're going, even though they're only gonna do the federal,
They only
They'll-
charge for the federal portion.
but it'll probably be a little more inclusive,
From my experience, I feel like the legal compliance side of the piece of the audit is a little more in-depth.
so, when it's finished a little cheaper, I'm not sure in the end that will be necessarily, don't think that it's a cost savings.
that's not the reason we're bringing it to the table, but and as a side note, our current auditor's already told us that the cost for the next contract round will be more expensive than what we have been paying, so.
And what do we pay, just out of curiosity?
This contract is $17,500 per year for 3 years.
And it's gonna go up from there?
Yes.
Well, that's what, he's alerted us to that because of the additional component, I think the one you just referenced,
For
right?
disclosures on the pension liabilities.
And his contract is up when?
With the completion of the current audit, the one that's
Okay.
working on.
So basically, we're at that point now, okay?
One of the reasons I like the idea is, we've changed a lot of things, a lot of people, and a lot of processes. And typically, anytime an organization changes leadership, it's a good idea to get an audit, and we got an audit. We have an audit every year, it's nothing new. But this will be a little bit different perspective to what we're used to getting. We've got new payroll people, we've got new people handling money, we've got new people handling time, vacations, overtimes, things like that. We have a new superintendent. Whether, for going forward, whether it's me or whether it's someone else sitting up here, I think the best thing we can do is the most transparency and the most in-depth look at things that we can get forward at this point to go forward.
Well, and two, just to remember that, really, we've had no findings, virtually no findings in our audits, but we uncovered a lot of things that we need to correct, so I'd like to just see if there's another process, and we could be missing something. We hope we're not, and that would be great, but it'll make, I think, us both feel better just to have a different lens, take a look at it, if y'all are okay with it. But knowing that, it might be a little different, and so I'm okay with that, but I want to make sure y'all are too.
My suggestion would be that we do the RFPs for the private one, and that we do a request to the examiner's office, And then y'all present back to the board what you've got of all of those and give us our options. And then we'll go from there. And of your options, you make a recommendation.
Okay. We may, whenever he does his, audit report, if it's at the next board meeting, we'll wait until that he's not in the room while we're having that conversation, and then maybe at the very next board meeting, that'll give us time to vet all that out too.
And his is fiscal year that completed in October, right? Is he auditing it out?
He, just audited us through September 2015.
So typically, how far in advance would you have to notify, if you were gonna use a state exam, how far in advance would you have to notify that, hey, we want you to do this?
Well, considering that we never used them and that they are short staffed, they get hit with the same, budget base that we can get with. The sooner the better. I mean, we want to go ahead and let them know, just see if it would be a possibility.
Yeah, and if for some reason Mr. Smith is not here at the next meeting and he puts it off, but we need to move forward, I'm okay with that. I mean, he knows his contract, so.
Okay. Well, we'll work on that and bring, but you all are, I'm hearing that you're open to looking at that possibility. And so, okay, we'll bring all of that to the table and let you know what we have.
And the segregation of duties findings for those of you that are new, for as long as I can